Nostalgia is a state of mind, deeply rooted in the collective psyche of Western culture. Despite technological and cultural advances beyond our ancestors' wildest imaginations, the yearning to go back has not waned. Far from it, nostalgia in an era of ever-changing, internet-centric media continues to be channeled in unprecedented ways. The internet provides an open canvas with which to exploit elements of our past and make marks on culture. The function of it can be seen almost like a museum exhibition, with us acting as curators, capturing and presenting our own mementos. Perhaps the most ideologically weighted movement to come out of the internet's rise to omnipresence, and a clear indication of its novel ability to harness the past, is Vaporwave.
In surgical dressings, be sure you get Band-Aid plastic strips.
How are you fixed for blades? You have plenty. How are you fixed for?
I took me a press, I took me some steel, I took my 2 hands and built an automobile.
Look at them. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Vaporwave's existence is inextricably linked to a complicated view of the past, equal parts profoundly sincere, yet purposely distorted. The name itself is a play on the term vaporware. These were products that companies would advertise, but never ultimately release. Vaporwave manifests itself both as a visual style and a genre of electronic music. In terms of visual hallmarks, Greco-Roman busts, Japanese type, and early computer graphics are co-opted to create this distinctive aesthetic. The use of pastiche extends beyond the visuals. For Vaporwave musicians, this typically means pilfering, manipulating the sounds of their youth. 80s and 90s pop, smooth jazz, new age music, advertisements, and found sounds. A defining musical trait of Vaporwave, sampling, has a long history in other more recognized styles like hip-hop and house music. However, Vaporwave takes this a step further by utilizing an approach called Plunderphonics. This term was conceived by musical composer John Oswald, whose most notable recordings consisted entirely of repurposing pre-existing songs and splicing them up. In his essay, Plunderphonics or Audio Piracy is a compositional prerogative, he argues, quote, "All popular music exists in a public domain. Listening to pop music isn't a matter of choice. We're bombarded by it. In its most insidious state, filtered to an incessant bass line, it seeps through apartment walls and out of the heads of regular people." This same ethos has been employed by landmark figures not just of the Vaporwave movement, but the music world by and large. Experimental electronic artist Daniel Lopatin has worked as a producer and collaborator for pop stars like The Weeknd, as well as scoring for critically acclaimed films like 2019's Uncut Gems. All this, and not to be outdone, his 2009 album, Echo Jams Volume 1, under the Chuck Person persona, ultimately birthed the Vaporwave genre. Underpinning his artistic philosophy is a grasp for the anachronistic, and an ardent belief in the utility of this repurposing. Quote, embedded in collective memory are unique instances of the personal. No commercial work is outside the reach of artistic reclamation. Likewise, no artistic project is outside the reach of commercial implications. Continuing to submerge the music in the temporal, other compositional techniques of Vaporwave include surrounding the sound in cascades of reverb and echo, giving the music an almost dreamlike nature. As new notes are being played, the listener can still grasp the notes playing previous as they ring out and blend into one another. This ethereal atmosphere is enhanced by slowing and pitch shifting of musical samples. For vocal snippets, this technique gives them a very ghostly, haunted timbre. The style of Vaporwave itself is easily dismissed, sometimes compositionally, but more often cited as just nothing more than an internet meme. Make no mistake, this isn't unfounded. Much of the style's creative output is steeped in irony and irreverent humor. Given how dependent it is on other works, how easy it is to imitate, a lack of any barrier for entry means that the sheer nature of Vaporwave makes it subject to criticism and ridicule. If the advent of the internet indicates anything, it's that traditional notions of copyright no longer can hold up under real scrutiny. The content we enjoy becomes part of our identity, and if one is to properly give an account of their past, they shouldn't have to censor the sights and sounds that make up those moments. By creating a level playing field and allowing anyone into the fold, Vaporwave has amassed a large audience and wildly expanded the musical scope. Perhaps what listeners are latching onto is the ideological baggage that Vaporwave can carry with it, that we should then examine. In his 1993 book, Spectres of Marx, philosopher Jacques Derrida coined the term Hauntology, referring to a complication in time where something from the past returns to the present, but in a way that's almost spectre-like. He argues that our experience can never be understood as solely one location, past, present, or future, but always a combination of all of the above. And then advancements in recording technology only further exaggerate this paradox, giving us an opportunity to vividly archive what has already taken place.
Je crois qu'aujourd'hui, tout le développement de la technologie des télécommunications, au lieu de restreindre l'espace des fantômes, la technologie moderne de l'image, de la cinématographie, de la télécommunication décuple le pouvoir des fantômes, le retour des fantômes.
All of the aforementioned qualities of Vaporwave situate it in this very haunted sphere, where elements of the past are playing on an endless loop. But Vaporwave isn't alone in this regard. The late cultural theorist Mark Fisher was a staunch proponent of a collective reverberation in contemporary Western art and pop culture. Applying Derrida's idea of hauntology to the incessant repetition of pre-existing themes and techniques in music, as well as visual arts. We are doomed to repeat ourselves in this condition, missing out on the future we had imagined. He said, quote, "The reliance of current artists on styles that were established long ago suggests that the current moment is in a grip of a formal nostalgia. Music is locked into pastiche and repetition. Not only has the future not arrived, it no longer seems possible." Beyond a deep adoration for the past, this movement operates as a collective lament over how reality has transpired. The concept of this lost future resonates, taps into a collective nerve, which is a deep sadness concerning the fleeting time that we have. Those who grew up in the era Vaporwave so idolizes, the 80s and 90s, are now grown adults, who now participate in a grueling slog with no foreseeable oasis on the horizon. The conventional wisdom of the American dream, that a rewarding life in the suburbs would be granted so long as you had a degree in hand, would evaporate before their very eyes. With impending economic hardship and a forecast of environmental catastrophe, who could blame them for wanting to retreat into the past? Culturally speaking, nostalgia is a double-edged sword. It's capable of instilling appreciation for the transient. It reminds us of our own mortality. It gives us a sense of comfort and identify with our roots. But on the other hand, it can have disastrous consequences. It can be used ideologically to instill a sense of fear of progress, a sense of complacency that represents either a lack of awareness or, even worse, complete acceptance in the face of impending consequences. In the end, Svetlana Boym in The Future of Nostalgia writes, "The only antidote for the dictatorship of nostalgia might be nostalgic dissidence, one that operates on the border zone between longing and reflection." Nostalgia's novelty in the present day comes down to the fact that thanks to the subordination of new technologies, we can now achieve a perfect recreation of the past, as well as a deteriorated view of the present. We can continually archive the present, all while it transitions into the past. But like sifting through old belongings in the attic, the question becomes, do we want all of this? Is it still possible to have something new? Or rather, as Fisher poses, is it still possible to forget?